they've got a potential third guy for the Lakers who will work in that complementary role.
Wait, who was the guy?
Zach LaVine.
But you're not going to get those type of opportunities, I don't think.
So after James Harden got traded to the Los Angeles Clippers to make them a super team, a lot of us NBA fanatics were wondering who's next up? Who's the next superstar that is probably going to get traded from their team? And in this particular case, it's not just one all-star that's about to be traded. There's multiple players that are about to be traded from the Chicago Bulls. As a matter of fact, there are some insiders that believe that the Chicago Bulls are going to look completely different in a month from now. And that isn't necessarily the worst thing for them. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Leading up to the season, I spammed predictions at you guys consistently. Michael Porter Jr. needed over 5.5 rebounds in his season debut. Tyreek Hill just needed a touchdown, and Steph Curry just needed 1 point. Shout out to those that tailed. For those of you guys that were able to make money, we're giving away our picks for free all season long for the NBA and NFL on my Instagram at TheFlightMike. And right now, when you use promo code microphone on Prize Picks, they'll match your deposit up until $100. Thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? In the 2021 offseason, the Chicago Bulls decided to build around Zach LaVine to the best of their ability. In the offseason prior, they drafted Patrick Williams with the number 4 overall pick, which was considered to be a bit of a reach, but was also seen as a project that could pay off tremendously, especially if Patrick Williams fulfilled his two-way potential. A few months later, during the trade deadline, they traded Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter, and 2 first-round picks to the Orlando Magic for Nikola Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu, the perfect prototypical center that could stretch the floor and also dominate the boards. And in the offseason, the Chicago Bulls really went all in on trying to figure out how to complete this roster. And they did it very intelligently. They pursued Lonzo Ball and signed him to a 4-year, $80 million contract. They signed DeMar DeRozan to a huge contract. And they also brought in Alex Caruso on a bargain of a deal. I mean, to this day, I'm still frustrated at the Los Angeles Lakers for not retaining Alex Caruso on a 4-year, $37 million contract. Really? And to the Chicago Bulls' credit, they started off hot during the 2021 to 2022 season when everybody was healthy. When Lonzo Ball was fully healthy, the Chicago Bulls went 22-13, and they looked like a team that could challenge the East. I mean, DeMar DeRozan out of nowhere became an MVP candidate. If you don't believe me, look at his statistics. This man was averaging 28 points per game and magically learned how to shoot threes. And before you say, Mikey was able to shoot threes before, yeah, but not at a 35% clip. The sky was the limit for the Chicago Bulls. Once Lonzo Ball got injured, it seemed like this team wasn't as dominant as originally. And as time went on and Lonzo Ball's injury got more and more complicated, it seemed like the cracks began to form in this exciting new look Chicago Bulls. A promising season where the Bulls started out 22-13 ended up with the Chicago Bulls finishing 40-42. They would lose to the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and the next year they wouldn't even make it to the playoffs, finishing 10th in the Eastern Conference. So now the Chicago Bulls are pretty much in purgatory. But the good news for the Chicago Bulls is while you do have a team that is performing as well as the Los Angeles Clippers are currently, at least you didn't empty out the treasure chest of assets for the roster that the Los Angeles Clippers have. As a matter of fact, the Chicago Bulls are in a very good situation if they want to begin rebuilding. And based upon what we're hearing, that's where they might be trending. A few years ago, Zach LaVine gave us a viral interview where he said this.
Everybody wants to play with the best players in the world. I would love to go out there and play with, a dude like LeBron James, but you're not going to get those type of opportunities, I don't think.
Unless you wind up on the Lakers, that's right.
And this obviously is causing people to speculate. If you're a contending team that's in need of some scoring, primarily in the form of maybe a third option possibly, and your season isn't going the way you hoped it would, Zach LaVine is definitely going to be a player that you'd be interested in. Now, originally, the Bulls weren't so sure on if they wanted to trade Zach LaVine, but it seems like nothing is going the Chicago Bulls way. I mean, DeMar DeRozan straight up said that he doesn't know if he wants to commit to a new contract with the Chicago Bulls. There are executives that, again, believe that the Chicago Bulls are on the verge of blowing up. One league source even saying that the Chicago Bulls won't have the same roster in a month because change feels imminent in Chicago. I don't like to unnecessarily throw around the B word, but it's Patrick Williams' third season. He's a former number 4 overall pick. Granted, it wasn't really that deep of a draft so far. I mean, the next all-star after Patrick Williams was Tyrese Halliburton at number 12, and he was already traded once. But Patrick Williams this season is averaging 6 points per game on 6.3 field goals per game, 1 assist per game, 1 turnover, 33.3% from the field, and 28.6% from 3. So I don't know if he's a B. You could tell me if he's a B. So this is leading to a huge article from Shams Charania on whether or not the Chicago Bulls want to blow it up. So Shams just came out with an article titled Zach LaVine and the Chicago Bulls are open to trade possibilities as teams probe availability according to sources, which pretty much means that teams are hitting up the Chicago Bulls saying,
hey, would you guys trade Zach LaVine?
And the Bulls said,
Yeah, we would if the price is right.
So here's what's going on. According to this article, many of the NBA's 30 general managers are in Chicago on Tuesday for the annual Champions Classic, the major opening night of the college basketball season, and this is where conversations could begin. Zach LaVine is in his 7th season in Chicago. He's averaging 22 points, 3 assists, and 4.8 rebounds while starting all 11 games this season. He's in the 2nd season of a 5-year, $215 million max contract, and the Chicago Bulls are currently 4-7. Now, the backstory is, after Chicago lost to the OKC Thunder, the Bulls players, led by Nikola Vucevic, expressed frustration with the Bulls offense, which they felt was similar to last season's after being under the impression things would be different. Off the court, league sources said that Chicago, which is largely running things back with its core from last season, would like to bring back DeMar DeRozan, who is on an expiring deal, but his future in Chicago is uncertain as well. The Bulls and DeRozan have discussed an extension, but the sides remain far apart on years and salary. The 34-year-old DeRozan wants to see where the team goes before committing to a return. So this makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're the Chicago Bulls, DeMar DeRozan has been fantastic for you. You would think there'd be mutual interest in him returning, but for all you know, DeMar DeRozan might want to be in a situation where he could win a championship. My personal prediction is DeMar DeRozan may take slightly less to go to a Los Angeles team, or maybe even a team like Golden State, primarily because he's a California kid. He went to USC. I think he went to Beverly High. I'm not exactly sure. I think he did. And my inkling is he wants to represent a Los Angeles-based team before his career's over. Now, Shams also says what a Zach LaVine trade would mean. The Bulls have relied on Zach LaVine's scoring for the past 6 seasons. Without him, they'll lose one of the game's best isolation scorers and perimeter shooters. But it would also offer the Bulls the opportunity to reimagine their offense instead of LaVine as the focal point. And the Bulls might be able to institute an egalitarian system that keeps all 5 players as threats. It would make the Bulls more difficult to defend. So what they're saying is pretty much since Zach LaVine is so ball dominant as an ISO scorer, it kind of takes other members of the Chicago Bulls out of the game, which makes a lot of sense because this is a Bulls team that has had success even without Zach LaVine. So it would make a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls to move on from LaVine. But if you ask me, if you're the Chicago Bulls, you're currently 4-7 at the time we're recording this video, I don't think you should just stop at Zach LaVine. I think everybody must go. If you're currently in 12th place, obviously the season is relatively young, but you're not close to beating the Sixers, the Celtics, the Bucks, the Pacers, the Heat, or the Hawks. What are we even doing here? You have good players, some that are on incredible contracts. I mean, Alex Caruso's contract is crazy. You have players that could help teams win championships. You have players that could potentially get teams out of bad contracts. And you're in a situation where you could take on contracts just so you could acquire draft picks. What are we doing here? In the case of DeMar DeRozan, he should be gone within the next few weeks. I mean, he is currently 35 years old. The fact that he is playing the way he is playing is nothing short of a miracle. If you have a team that's willing to offer a first-round pick and a young asset for him in return, then go for it. In the case of Nikola Vucevic, he's 33 years old, and he's been averaging the same numbers consistently over the past 3 seasons. No, seriously, 17 6.6 points per game ever since he's arrived to Chicago. And I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm saying this is the peak of his value. What are you waiting for at this point? There are teams that would give you first round picks for players like Nikola Vucevic or DeMar DeRozan or even Alex Caruso. If you ask me, if you're the Chicago Bulls, this is a no-brainer. Trade all of your assets, which you have a ton of assets, and just start your rebuild OKC Thunder Sam Presti style. Now, a lot of people are speculating where Zach LaVine can go, or where DeMar DeRozan could go, or where Vucevic could go, or where Caruso could go. And as a Los Angeles Lakers fan, I'll include the obligatory Lakers are getting everyone bit now.
They've got a potential third guy for the Lakers who will work in that complementary role, who's not going to challenge LeBron, who's going to be thrilled to be there with LeBron, because I got a guy.
Who was the guy?
Zach LaVine.
That makes sense. Chicago.
He's not doing any good on the Bulls.
I would love the Los Angeles Lakers to get Zach LaVine. I personally don't think it's going to happen. There's a lot of teams that are in on Zach LaVine, such as the Los Angeles Lakers. Originally, my prediction was the Philadelphia 76ers, but they're performing fairly well as is. They're the best team in the East. I highly doubt that they want to mess that up. They're currently on an 8-game win streak, so I'm sure they're fine. They do not need Zach LaVine. They don't need more stars. They have the perfect amount of depth and the perfect offense. So for now, let's just assume that the 76ers are out of it. The Miami Heat are also on a win streak currently, and it seems like each and every time a star player is available, they're interested in him, but they never end up pulling the trigger. There are a lot of teams that are interested in Zach LaVine, and at the end of the day, he's probably going to go to the highest bidder, and if not, the Bulls could always hold on to him. He's under contract for the next 3 seasons. They hold all the leverage in any Zach LaVine deal, but by holding on to him, you stagnate your rebuild and the inevitable even more. So I'd hope that they move on from him sooner rather than later. What I think is going to be the first domino to fall is the Chicago Bulls trading Alex Caruso, which I could see any contending team trading for, especially a team that has a huge need on defense. The number one team that comes to mind currently is the Milwaukee Bucks, because after trading Drew Holiday and bringing in Damian Lillard, you're much weaker defensively than you were the year prior. Yes, offensively you took a step forward, but defensively you took a step back. Alex Caruso could potentially fill that void that was left following the Drew Holiday trade. It makes way too much sense for it not to happen. I could see DeMar DeRozan potentially getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers if the price is right, and primarily because at the very worst, I think he'll be a 1-year rental. A lot of this is going to have to depend on how the season shakes out. Currently, the Lakers are 5-5, so maybe they're looking at making a move, but they can't make any significant move for another month from now, on December 15th, which is when you're allowed to legally trade players that you just signed in free agency. Either way, it should be very interesting because the Chicago Bulls have to blow it up. They need to trade these players as soon as possible, and they need to start tanking for a better pick as soon as possible. Their season's clearly going nowhere, and I give them props for them being at least honest with themselves about it. Let me know in the comment section down below what team could use Zach LaVine's services the most, and what player do you think is going to get traded first. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.